We got Mark calling in. Ooh, we actually don't have a location for you here, Mark. It does say topic. I want to say Mark from Topic because that kind of sounds funny. Maybe Hot Topic or something. I don't know. Mark, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Hello. It's very good to be here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Mark. Thanks for checking in with us. What do you want to talk with us today? Talk to us about today. Excuse me.
So, what I wanted to ask you, and I've called before and asked these kind of questions. Have you ever thought about the fact that human beings are often considered the smartest? We are animals, but we have, an intelligence and sentience greater than anybody else. But
Yep.
why is
on average
that we always... Hello?
Yeah, I was just making a comment. I was just saying on average, that's true. Definitely not all people, but for a large portion of us, sure.
Yeah, and I hear that. But as I look across the world, and I feel like war is something that we always choose as Homo sapiens, I guess, and that it makes me sad because we're constantly being given examples of like, well, the human situation is full of negativity and horrible things, but look at how beautiful Mozart wrote music, or, these great pyramids or anything else that we do that's really just spectacular and almost justifies our sins. But I look across the world right now and I think there's a lot more peace that could be achieved, but our race is racing towards getting really angry at each other. And it just seems like such a shame because I feel like we were meant for better. How do you feel?
I'll tell you what I think, and then I want to hear MD's thoughts. I mean, from an evolutionary standpoint, our progress as a species is remarkable, right? We've been able to accomplish things in the lifespan of the existence of human beings that no other animal species has ever been able to accomplish on Earth, as far as we're aware of. Period. Right? Like that's obvious. Arts, sciences, Britney Spears, etc. I mean, we've done it all. So it's like, yeah, why do we still do these other crazy things? Because we're still animals, because we still have, glands in us that secrete hormones in us that make us do things that aren't always rational. And it's even arguable whether anything we do is truly rational, right? There's a lot of people that say, well, really everything we do is just self-serving in a way. And sometimes we just consider the state an invention, as an extension of the self in some way, which is why we have these, mass global conflicts with each other. And right. So I don't know. I think it just speaks to our animal nature. That's just how we are. I don't know if there's a cure for that besides radically changing humans as we know it. We'd have to become something so post-human, it may not be recognizable as to who we are anymore. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe not. I don't know. I'll leave it to the philosophers to debate that one out. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me, I guess, that we still have that kind of conflict. But I don't know. MD, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, exactly what you said. And I think, Mark, you agree that humans are animals.
Yes.
I don't know why we would expect humans to behave differently from animals. Animals are capable of both conflict and cooperation. And so humans are capable of the same, and we do the same. And we follow pretty remarkably similar patterns to what you see in nature, right? You fight with outgroups, members of the outgroup, and you cooperate with members of the in-group. And I think that's kind of, at least for me, part of the goal of secular humanism is to try to expand the in-group to encompass the entire human species. And then the next step beyond that is extending it to include other species, which is, Dan's jam to a certain extent. But that's the goal. And we have created various mechanisms to prevent us from following some of those instincts, some of those animal instincts, and they work to a certain degree. But I also think that times of hardship and trial bring out more conservative values and more in-group, out-group division. And I think that there have been some challenges globally recently, not to mention, above the standard baseline rate of conflict. There have been some global events in the past couple of years that may have shaken things up a little bit and made people a little more conservative in their values and, more likely to view someone as an out-group member rather than an in-group member. But, I don't think our intelligence precludes conflict.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of smart people that are racist, for example. It doesn't mean that
it makes us more effective in our execution of our hatred for each other, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Two lions fighting, they don't have the capacity to destroy, an entire group of other lions with the push of a button, sort of thing, right?
Yeah, Mark, what do you think?
If I might interject, when I was in college, I had to do a final paper where it was about nuclear weapons and peace treaties. And it was always like, if you look through history, peace treaties are always after an incredible, terrible war, whether it be the 100 Years' War or, World War I and the failure of the League of Nations.
Isn't that because usually that's how they end the war?
Well, it's not, but it generally seems to be that people do get tired, or elites aren't able to draw on anymore when there's a huge conflict. It eventually ends. I mean, our own nation still is, trying to say, was it right to drop 2 atomic weapons on Japan? Or is that just, oh my God, you knew what it was going to do to those people?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, so I'm not at all versed in international relations and my political science is rudimentary at best. But there is a concept within political science that kind of discusses what is the true organization of world powers, right? How do what is the underlying basis of that? And one of the most popular suppositions is that really we're all in a state of total anarchy, right? And that organizations like the UN and before it, the League of Nations, right, are just really power plays by nations to establish their own powers in a state of anarchy, right? Because I mean, I'm not the first person to point out, right, the ineffectiveness of global organizations like the UN to, end poverty or war or famine in particular regions. Now, that's not to say they don't have their success. I think that has also been kind of something that hasn't been sung. There are definitely people groups that have benefited from organizations like that existing, but like above all else, we're kind of just all in this state of anarchy, that being literally just might makes right at the end of the day. We like to think it's on a group of international laws that are like kind of governing all of world principles and actions. But look at, I mean, pretty much all the last conflicts in the last decade kind of prove against that, right? I mean, they're all breaking international laws, but they still happen, right? So I don't know what else to say other than, yeah, I guess that's just the reality of what people are. I mean, in my mind, that is a better explanation for the world than say, oh, there's a God in the universe that's somehow organizing all of these events and making things happen the way they do.
Well, I don't want to go quite into that vein.
Yeah. I mean, it makes
I
just more
just
sense
feel
to me
that,
that, yeah,
like,
it is just kind of nature guiding us most, and we're all just kind of lucky that humans are kind of nice sometimes, because it can seems like it's the exception to the
and
rule
that's
in
what
a lot
it
of
is.
cases. Yeah.
I mean, and actually, my major was political science, so it's, not surprising that you picked up on that, and it's just like, of course, there are occasions where nations are on good terms with one another. Somebody doesn't have enough food, they send a lot more food, and things are good. It's just that lately I feel like, I'm stunned at how greater numbers of people are not moved by how our species, as opposed to chimpanzees or parrots or whatever, that we need to understand that all people's lives are important, and it just doesn't seem to sink in.
Oh,
But
it really does.
that's a
I mean,
question that
we
can't ever be-
started this show off, Mark, by discussing whether beating disabled children is still okay. Like, that's apparently still a thing people have to figure out, right? Like, I want to be. I talk to a lot of really smart people. I'm very privileged in that. And I like to think, wow, there's a lot of good people out there that are really smart and have it together and really think some of this stuff out. But man, there's a lot of people that don't. They really just don't. They really just don't think about it in quite the terms you're describing, Mark. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe it'll never be something we could ever fix. But I don't know. It's not going to stop me from trying personally. I don't know,
And
MD. What do you think?
well, I mean, I think Mark, you are projecting your good values onto people who don't necessarily share them, right?
Yeah.
There are people in the world who think that because they come from a particular religious, cultural, or racial group that they are better than other people. They may think that people who are not part of their in-group are less than human, right? That has notoriously driven previous war crimes and things like that. So, again, you are clearly a good person who has good values, but those values are not shared. You can't expect people who don't share that value to act as though they do.
Just to wrap this up, I understand that, like, within every culture, there's poems about the beauty of life. There are, sculptures that show a mother in front of the tomb of a child that has passed away.
Sure. There are universal things, I think, is what you're trying to say. There's universal. There are factors and experiences that are universal to all humans.
Right. Not just the bad parts that I was talking about before.
Right.
Because I want this to be a better world, but I think I might not see it in my lifetime.
I mean, better is a difficult thing to measure and a difficult thing to define. So
yeah, it also depends on what you mean by better. I mean, we got better computer graphics for video games, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's one thing. That's one way you could look at it. I don't know. I mean, they can't all be doom and gloom every day. That's just not a way to live. What's the point of living if it's just going to be doom and gloom? You got to find some good stuff. I mean, for me, right, I like to focus a lot of my time and effort onto making this show happen and like other stuff should happen, because like that's how I feel like I can make a difference in the world. I personally do feel like other people, if they are in a rut like what you're feeling, Mark, if they really want to, like, I don't know, see the world in a better positive light, when you get involved in like activist spaces like this one, you really do see the good in a lot of people in trying to make things better, despite the world kind of giving us the cold shoulder sometimes, right? So I don't know, Mark, if I could give you anything, I would say find something that you're passionate about that you want to help make better and be the change you want to see in the world,
Mr. Gandhi, yes. I won't take up any more of your time. I appreciate everything both of you but I'm one of those goth people, so I have a little bit of a darker, cynical viewpoint. But I love the fact that we exchange views, and have a great weekend.
Thanks, Mark. You too. I like the addition of being goth at the end there. That's pretty good.
I'm goth, so naturally I'm cynical and
my worldview
depressed.
is pessimistic. Yeah. No, I mean, I at first I didn't really get what Mark was calling about, but I guess I kind of got it towards the end there, right? It's just kind of a feeling of like, man, there's a lot of shit going on, and you can feel really powerless, right?
I don't know. Part of me, I'm sure these numbers exist and someone's actually figured this out, but part of me thinks this is like a confirmation bias type thing when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
We're potentially more exposed now than we have been in the past to news about bad stuff going on in the world. And then it drives us to look and say, wow, there's a lot of bad stuff going on. I wonder if there's other bad stuff going on. And then you go digging down, some news rabbit hole and you figure out all this stuff. Maybe this has been going on for, hundreds, thousands of years and we just didn't know about it. And now we're just more connected to each other. And as a result of that connection, we're seeing things that we don't necessarily like that are happening, that were always happening.
True. Like when we talk about mental illness, for example, like a lot of people say, wow, look at all these rising rates of mental illness in America, and in America in particular, but worldwide, we're seeing this. And yeah, it's terrible. And I it's obviously a problem, but also like we have the best diagnostic criteria to figure that stuff out than we have ever had. Like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, I mean, this better than anyone, MD, like it wasn't even the thing to give people the kind of diagnoses we give to people half the time, right? And if we did, it was for something else, and we weren't treating people the way that we probably should have been treating
them.
Well,
and the classic example is like autism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what drove the anti-vax, the most recent, I guess, wave of anti-vax with what's his name, Wakefield. Him seeing like, oh wow, there's this huge wave of people getting autism. It's because we're recognizing that people have autism, and we didn't before. And before it was just, oh, that's a weird kid, we'll just keep him home from school.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like it's a confirmation bias, and it's like an altered selection. And anyway,
it's an effect of our globalized culture, right? We're able to. I'm able to. If it was me alive 50 years ago, I wouldn't know anything about Oman. I'm actually not sure if Oman was a country 50 years ago. But like now I know what's happening in Oman because I can see it on the front page of Reddit or whatever whenever there's more people dying and stuff, right? So it's like there's a news item that I can't do a whole lot about. Maybe I can help donate towards some causes or actively volunteer, which I try to do for other things, right? But I don't know. That's how I keep myself sane personally. Like that when I give like little tidbit there at the end, that's not me like giving patronizing advice. That's me coping because like that's how I have to, I don't know, live life to my fullest. Because if I wasn't doing something, I'd feel even worse, quite frankly, knowing that I could be doing something when I'm not. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard balance to strike because you can't be constantly saving the world either, right? Yeah. Like you have to figure out a way to cope and carry on.